Good evening and welcome to the June 5th, 2018 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Let's start with having our roll call. Madam Secretary?
Chairperson Keever.
Here.
Vice Chair Curtis.
Here.
Commissioner Layman.
Here.
Commissioner Long.
Here.
Commissioner Glenn. Commissioner Bagwell. Commissioner Cassiopo. A quorum's present.
Thank you. And for the record, we'll show that Commissioner Cassiopo is absent excused. All right, let's move on to our possible action on approval of minutes from our April 3rd, 2018 meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those?
Public
Did we
comment.
want to do public comment?
Public
Oh,
comment.
I'm sorry. Public comment. I apologize. I skipped over one. All right. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the Parks and Recreation Commission at this point? Come on down, CK. It's Lori.
There's a lot of programs.
Okay. And Madam Secretary, Commissioner Bagwell is here. You ready, CK?
I'm ready, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm, for the record, CK Bailey, Carson City. Just wanted to thank this commission, excuse me, in keeping its eyes and ears open on Ash Canyon Road, which is obviously open now, which opens up Hobart Reservoir for fishing activities. I just wanted to thank, because it costs money, and I want to thank Parks and Rec for getting that money, which was not an easy item. That was Ann Bollinger, I believe, was the spearhead on that one. So I want to thank her. I want to thank this commission and Parks and Rec. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you for those kind words.
I tested it out this weekend. I did.
And tell us about it. Does it pass?
It did. I did Ash Canyon Road all the way to the reservoir. Yeah, so I checked it out.
Good job. Any other public comments? All right. Hearing none, let's move on now to the approval of minutes from our April 3rd, 2018 meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review? Any comments, corrections, modifications? Sean, you look like you want to say something.
I wasn't present at that meeting, so I'll just abstain.
As I wasn't either, so I was going to abstain as well.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Are there any comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And the record will show that Commissioner Layman and myself are abstaining from the vote.
Did you guys say on the record that you weren't here? You did, right? Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure.
Thanks for keeping us on our toes, Iris. We appreciate that. All right, are there any modifications to the agenda? Does anybody wish to modify? Jennifer, you're okay? Okay. All right, on that note, let's go to item 3A, presentation by the Nevada Recreation and Park Society of a Program Excellence Award for the Kids Triathlon co-sponsorship. Patrick O'Mara. All right, gentlemen, introduce yourself and take it away.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Patrick O'Mara, and I'm the Recreation Coordinator for Washoe County Regional Parks and Open Space. Tonight, however, I am here as the new chairperson for the Awards Committee for the Nevada Recreation and Park Society. The Nevada Recreation and Park Society is a small yet enthusiastic and energetic organization that functions solely by professionals who volunteer their time to promote parks and recreation and enhancing the quality of life throughout the state of Nevada. Each year, we acknowledge the accomplishments of our professionals and agencies in the form of awards for outstanding program design, park development, and professional accomplishments. During our annual state conference, we announce and award the winners with a plaque during the awards ceremony. This year, as part of a partnership with City of Reno, City of Sparks, Washoe County, Carson City, and the Carson City Tiger Sharks swim team together hosted the inaugural Northern Nevada Kids Triathlon Series. The Kids Triathlon the series was established as a non-competitive event with distances set appropriately for participants ages 4 to 17, running one triathlon each month during the summer of 2017. As the organization with the longest-running individual event, Carson City and the Carson Tiger Sharks swim team were an invaluable asset in the success of this overall series. Across the series, we had approximately 150 individual participants, with about 30 participating in 2 events and 12 participating in the entire series. On behalf of the Nevada Recreation and Park Society, it is with great pleasure that I present to the staff of Carson City Parks and Recreation this award for the 2018 Program of Excellence in the category of co-partnership for their participation in and leadership of the 2017 Northern Nevada Kids Triathlon Series.
Mike Freeman with Carson City Aquatics, just for the record. Just wanted to give a thanks to the other entities to participate in the series. We have done, all of us have pretty much done kids triathlons individually, but this last 2 years we've been making it a series to try to get a little more enthusiasm for the sport of triathlon throughout the region, and it's growing and it's becoming more successful. This year, City of Sparks has already run theirs. City of Reno, unfortunately, has some repair work being done to their swimming pool, so they won't be running theirs. But Carson City will be having ours July 14th. So if you guys have any kids or have any kids interested in the sport, have them come on down and we'll show them how to triathlon.
Excellent. I want to say good job. Thanks so much for doing that for us and for encouraging the swimming youth in our community. Jennifer, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I did want to thank Pat for coming all the way down to Carson City, and I really wanted to thank Mike and his staff and the swim team, the Tiger Sharks. It's really a great partnership that puts this event on. My kids participated in it last year. It's a huge event. It's so much fun to watch. Even if you don't have kids that are participating, it's a really great event to come see. So thanks to all the staff for all their hard work.
I need a picture. Do any of the commissioners have any comments on this item? Commissioner Curtis?
Well, of course, I have to do a longevity thing. I can remember when this started, and it was so cute, the little ones. So, I mean, everybody's cute, I'm sure, but it's great to have all these ages, and I think it does teach them something. So I'm glad to see it still going, and congratulations. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for doing this for us, and thank you, Pat, for coming down. We really appreciate it. You don't have to run off. You can stay with us. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item 3B, presentation to acknowledge the community contribution of Parks Commissioners Robert Glenn and Sean Layman.
Did we miss public comment on that last one?
We might have. Is there any public comment on the last one? I'm not doing well with.
Totally fine.
Any public comment? CK? Okay.
I'm already in trouble.
No, you're not. All right. All right, so Jennifer, do you want to take this one, please?
I would be happy to. Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wanted to take a few moments to thank Robert Glenn and Sean Layman for their years of dedicated service to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Both of these commissioners are going off the commission right now. I know I've only been here for 2 years, but they've been so supportive of me, really providing valuable feedback, and just so encouraging and appreciative of staff, which is so rare, and we really appreciate all of that support. And they're so passionate, both of them, about the parks, recreation, trails, and open space in this community. And we value that so much, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank them, and we do have plaques for each of them. I wish Commissioner Glenn was here, but I have one for Commissioner Layman.
Again, I'd just like to echo Jennifer's comments. Sean, you were here when I first came on board, and you led the way for me.
Oh, thank you.
So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the time and effort you put into the commission. You come well prepared. You're thoughtful. You help me think about new things.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I guess I'd say a few words here. The only one that's been here longer now is Commissioner Curtis. I thought I was going to outlive her. I've been here, yeah, a full decade, and it's been enjoyable. I've always liked coming down here, spent several years as the chair. I think two of the highlights for me was the reason I re-upped again was to see the MAC through, and that was a big one for sure, and to see what a success it's been has been nice. The other one was kind of personal to me, is I got Carson City recognized as being a runner-friendly community, which plaques still over there at the community center. But yeah, I'll miss working with all of you. I'm moving out of the area, so thank you for the opportunity. It's been good.
Any other comments? Donna?
Oh, I have to say something. No, Sean's been very helpful when it's been really super snowy and everything, giving me a ride here. Gonna miss that. But anyway, I just want to wish him luck in his new endeavors, going to an interesting place, and I'm going to miss you. And I really appreciate, your contributions. I mean, there's been a couple of monetary contributions, like to the playground equipment at our park at Long Ranch and things like that. So you've been invaluable. Thank you.
Commissioner Bagwell?
Well, and I think the best thing that you see about all the park and rec commissioners, open space, is that you also are a role model for the community with your children. It's like, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any public comment? Oh,
I
sorry.
got one more.
All right.
We'll finish this off. I just wanted to say, and it goes for Robert as well, but not only are they very involved with the Parks and Rec, but it's also like the role model and very involved with the community, like whether it be school, extracurricular activities, whether it be Parks and Rec, softball, or baseball. I know Robert Glenn's in baseball, but this is exactly what, when you're in school and they ask you, what can we do to make better students? It's about making better parents. And Sean really has exemplified that, as well as Michelle, his wife. So for me, I know I'm good friends with Sean, and so I'm going to miss him, but I'm mostly excited for him to move on, see other places. But it's obviously what he's done for the Parks and Rec has been awesome. I followed chair behind Sean, and I feel like he led me the way as well, Leanne. So he was a good role model here, and he's still a good role model even when he's not a chair, obviously, as well. So anyway, Sean, thank you.
Thank you,
and
Brett.
Robert, I wish you my best as well. So
Exactly.
Thank you.
You coming up here, Jennifer? Public comment? CK?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. That was really very nice, Brett. That was Commissioner Long. That was very nice. All of you, very nice to say about Commissioner Layman. I may be wrong, but I don't think I am, that when Bailey Pond was formulating and the name was being formulated, and that was some sort of hoodoo. To me, it was like it didn't really matter. It was the pond was in. I didn't really care about the name that much. I thought Fuji Park Pond would have been just dandy. I would have been in love with it either way. But you made a comment. You said, Bailey Pond? That came up. How about Bailey Fishing Pond? Do you remember that? And I said, Bailey Fishing Pond. Let me give this a think. Yeah, that sounds good to me, sure, you know. So I want to thank you for that. It's indelibly etched into the history of this town. Now that may seem very small, but it's not. It's actually very large. So something it would take an act of God, I think, to move that pond out. Your name is going to be the name that you helped produce is going to be infused in that pond on the south side of Carson City along U.S. Highway 395 forever. Good luck to you.
Yeah, well, thank you to you too, CK. I mean, we've all enjoyed working with you, and again, thanks to the commission and staff. And yeah, I mean, for the record, I'm moving to Kamloops, British Columbia, in Canada. So that's where we're headed.
So our loss is Canada's gain.
I hope.
So with all the biking that you're going to do, Commissioner Layman, you're thinking of maybe picking up a fly rod in the Kamloops?
They've got a lot of that stuff. Yep, you bet.
Let me know if you need some flies.
All right. Yes, thank you so much, Sean. We will miss you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's move on to item 3C, the Park Program of the Month, presentation and discussion on Camp Carson by Andrew Mendez. Ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you. My name is Andrew Menendez, and I'm the Recreation Program Supervisor for Youth Programs and Adapted Recreation. All right, perfect. All right, well, I'm here to talk to you about our summer camp program that we'll be having this summer. And one of the new changes that we are making for this program is it will officially be called Camp Carson. We wanted to create a name that would define our summer camp program as well as connect us with the community we serve. Children entering kindergarten through 6th grade will be able to attend Camp Carson, and the different names for the groups include Kinders, Wagoneers, Pioneers, Explorers, Mountaineers, and Trailblazers. We are licensed through the state and for the out-of-school recreation programs. The fee for Camp Carson is $100 per child per week and includes open swim, 1 meal day a week, local field trips, and unique programs for each group. Our hours of operation are 6:30 in the morning till 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, with one holiday being July 4th that we will observe. Registration for Camp Carson can be done at carson.org/ccpr, at the Carson City Aquatic Center, or via my office line. And this truly is a great opportunity for the kids to be involved in structured activities throughout the day while meeting other kids their age. Camp Carson introduces kids to exciting indoor and outdoor activities with staff who really care about the children and provide an excellent program for them. Camp Carson also has 2 full-time employees working to make sure camp runs smoothly and efficiently. We also have 41 part-time employees active in our programs and provide structured activities, engage with the youth, and provide amazing customer service to the kids and adults that we interact with. Our part-time staff truly do provide an amazing service to the programs and to the people in our community. We are lucky to have them in our program and hope to aid them in learning valuable skills that will help them in their future endeavors. At Camp Carson, we will also be offering numerous activities that will help keep the kids entertained and occupied. Every Monday, we'll be having team building activities to get the kids working together and becoming a team. Team building activities, this is helpful in getting the kids to meet other kids their age in an environment that helps them break out of their shells and have fun. We will also be offering group games that will constantly change. Arts and crafts and STEAM activities will also be offered and will teach them something new and exciting to expand their knowledge. We also hope to offer a guest speaker each week, as well as local trips, open swim, and meal days with the help of Food for Thought. We will also be offering field trips every Friday to locations such as Easy Air, Lake Tahoe, Bowers Mansion Pool, as well as Sierra Safari Zoo.
Where's that?
Oh, that
Sierra.
is
Where's
in
that
Reno.
zoo? In Reno?
Yeah.
Instead? Oh, out instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Me too. Right? Oh. So we do have some new activities at camp. Kinders will be participating in PBS After School Adventure. This resource is a collection of multimedia activities from kids' favorite PBS kids shows and characters. Wagoneers will also be participating in Character Counts, and this program establishes positive school climate and instills critical academic, social, and emotional skills, as well as core character traits. Pioneers will be participating in CATCH, which stands for Child's Approach, or Coordinated Approach to Child Health, and this program unites multiple players in a child's life to create a community of health. Explorers will be participating in NRPA's Wildlife Explorers, and this program is an initiative that connects youth to nature by leveraging existing out-of-school programming at local parks and recreation centers. Mountaineers will be participating in Energy Coalition, and Energy Coalition helps create an abundant and healthy world by inspiring others to become energy architects of our sustainable future. Working through their 3 core service areas: smart energy solutions, engagement in education, and energy policy leadership. Trailblazers will be participating in Camp Quest, and this program takes kids on outdoors activities throughout the summer to gain an understanding of the great outdoors. A new program that we'll be having this year as well is Food for Thought, and we'll be working with them to provide lunches to our campers every Wednesday. Their volunteers are dedicated to helping hungry children in their community by providing food, as well as solutions, resources, and increased awareness to combat hunger. We will be working with Food for Thought to provide lunches for any kids that are getting assistance from the Children's Cabinet through our Camp Carson program as well. They will be working with us and providing lunches at Camp Carson participants on Wednesdays. All right.
Can I ask a question on that?
Absolutely, yeah.
So only on Wednesdays and only for the children that are participants of Children's Cabinet?
So every
This
Wednesday for all campers, all of our campers participants will be getting a meal included on Wednesdays, whether they're part of Children's Cabinet or not.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Oh, sorry.
How to work that? Okay, better answer.
Yeah.
Every day, right?
Yeah, and then on Monday through Friday, Food for Thought will be providing lunches for our campers that are getting assistance through the Children's Cabinet as well.
So normally that means children bring their sack lunch or whatever?
Exactly. Normally, all the kids would bring their lunch Monday through Friday, but some of our kids that are getting subsidies from the Children's Cabinet, they'll be able to get lunches for free with Food for Thought's help. So now those children will not need to bring lunches to our program anymore. Yeah. And Carson City Parks and Recreation Youth Programs are excited to announce that we also have new iPads for our program with the ActiveNet app, When to Work, and electronic time clock. The ActiveNet app will be an important tool for our program, as staff will now be able to look up rosters for the kids in our program without any delay. We are excited to bring this new technology to our program, as it will add safety measures as well for staff to look up who's allowed to pick up the children, as well as looking up child's information, as well as parents' contact information. We are also excited to be bringing When to Work to our program, as we will now be able to have an electronic staff schedule where staff can go online and view their schedule and exchange their shifts with other employees. They will also be able to, Lastly, having an electronic time clock on the apps, this will give us a much more accurate time for staff start and end times, which having this technology will help us lower staffing costs. Camp Carson will also be holding our staff training June 11th to June 15th, and this training will consist of going through the staff manual, training on active shooter, mandated reporting, and harassment and workplace violence, and concussion training. We also hold training on CPR and first aid, STEAM, defensive driver training, as well as some icebreakers and team building for our employees. For our summer camp program, Camp Carson will be holding 8 weeks of camp, and this translates to about 39 days for the summer camp season, with having July 4th as a no camp in session. The Children's Cabinet exists to keep children safe and families together. This is the program that we'll be working with to help provide subsidies for some of our campers, participants. And they also offer services and resources that address unmet needs. And they represent a unique and effective cooperative effort between the private sector and public agencies in Northern Nevada. The Children's Cabinet Subsidy Program is a financial assistance program for eligible parents who are working or seeking employment. Carson City Parks and Recreation are now working with Children's Cabinet to offer new child care provider subsidy. And once the Children's Cabinet receives an application, the applicant will be notified if they are eligible for subsidy. While we not be holding our own scholarship program, we are excited to be working with the Children's Cabinet as they hire a higher increase in subsidies for those that are granted a subsidy with them. Alrighty. Camp Carson aims to provide structured and fun activities for the youth in our programs. We are always finding new ideas and programs for Camp Carson, and it is our responsibility to engage with the kids and make sure they enjoy themselves while they are in our program. They are our number one priority. Again, just wanted to thank you for the time to hear me out and about Carson City's Parks and Recreation, what we have to offer with Camp Carson, and we're just excited to get the summer started for our summer camp program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I believe we have some questions up here for you.
Yeah, perfect.
Commissioner Beck.
So can you tell me how many participants did we have last year, and then what is the scope or the maximum amount of children you could handle in the program?
So last year we had an average about 150 participants per week. I would say our scope for the maximum that we could have would be 200. Is it?
Eric Klug, Recreation Program Manager. So we really don't have like a max limit because it's, the more kids we have, just the more staff that we need. I mean, obviously, budget is a concern on staffing, but as long as we maintain ratios, we can pretty much have as many kids as we want.
So we have enough capacity, you're saying, in the program to just, so if 300 signed up, we just have to hire a few more hourlies and cover it with their $100 a week fee.
That's correct.
Okay. I went to a training with youth parole and was listening to a psychologist with some ideas and things, and I'm really seeing some potential linkages of things we can do in the community to, and I think you guys call it character counts. And it really was all about having these building blocks for children when they're young so that their brains will develop correctly along the path. And so I'm just interested in the capacity that we have and maybe some other participants we could grow into the program to meet some needs so we can expand. So yes. Okay, thank you.
Jennifer, you want to weigh in?
Sure. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I mean, we can definitely accommodate up to that amount. There are some considerations. We have fire code, and we have a facility that we don't want to, get too large for. We have licensing considerations, so when you have really large groups, there's certain ways we have to manage within our state license, but there's still a lot of room to grow. And I do think that this partnership with Children's Cabinet is really going to help us grow our program and also provide the subsidy and the assistance that a lot of our families need. And it's really, previously we had a scholarship program that was successful, and it was about $15,000 a year we provided in scholarships, which was really needed. But a lot of these families need additional assistance that we're not social workers, we're not able to provide them, or even sometimes even recognize the needs that they might have, but the Children's Cabinet will be able to help in that way. So we're not having to do a lot of that justification. They have to obviously fill out the paperwork and go through the process, but they're getting other services most likely through the Children's Cabinet, and them getting in to other services throughout the community and getting the help that their family truly needs.
Curtis?
Yes, a question and then a comment. Are most of the programs at Mills Park, or do you go to the other parks?
So they are at Mills Park. So our kinders through Pioneers, they are located at the community center, and our Explorers to Trailblazers, they are located at the Marv Texera Pavilion. So, but both programs do occupy in the Mills Park area. Yeah.
I serve on the board of directors for Partnership Carson City, and recently we went through a number of applications for community development block grant funds, and one of the applicants was the Brewery Arts Center, and they wanted to do something they called Art in the Park, and they wanted to do it at Park Terrace, and I don't know if there's other programs there or not, and they also are going to be using food for thought in terms of helping them with these kids. They assume because they're near Empire School that a lot of these kids are going to be eligible and in need. I'm assuming that any other child who shows up at that park that wants to participate can also be there. But anyway, we were unable to give them all the funding that they wanted, but I encouraged them to get a hold of you, because I think this Arts in the Park program could be done not just at Park Terrace, but maybe at other places. And if they're getting a hold of primarily teachers that teach art to kids during the year, but are available in the summer and willing to lend their services, and I think they're going to be doing like different projects each week, or I'm not sure what the rotation is there, but I think it would be a good adjunct, and hopefully they will get a hold of you, because I think, the more we can collaborate with programs like this, it just adds to the program and builds it, as you say. So hopefully they've been in touch or will be.
Any other questions or comments?
They've been doing the Art in the Park for a few years now with Food for Thought, and they paint rocks. I did a ladybug one year, not very well, but
You did it.
I did make a lady. Yeah, art's not my thing, but they usually, I want to say, have about 30 kids that are in the Art in the Park program that they go. They bring all the supplies, everything. They put it out on a few tables, and the kids just have a good time and then have their meal. And so they've been doing that for a few years, and for the reason that you said, that is at Park Terrace.
Well, thank you so much. That was informative. Almost makes me wish I was 6 again. What?
We could go,
Field
you look for volunteers?
Or
Or do they need to be trained?
All right, I'm following her. All right, is there any public comment on this item? All right, well then let's move on. So,
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
all right. Our staff updates, discussion only for update and discussion on residential development as it relates to parks, recreation, and trail components. Carson City. Jennifer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Vern Cron is under the weather, so he sends his apologies. So I'm going to try to jump in a little bit on this, and if there are questions that we still have remain unanswered, then we're happy to come back and send you further updates or any information following the meeting. I'm not going to read through his entire staff report for you. I think you've all had time to kind of digest it, but I think just some some takeaways from the staff report are, obviously, there's a real uptick in development, which is real opportunities for growth and new parks and recreation opportunities, specifically in Carson City, which is really an exciting time, and we're happy to be part of that. We're working with some really amazing developers that really want to contribute to the quality of life in Carson City, which is really an exciting time, and we're happy to help work with them and make sure that our Park and Recreation Master Plan and our Unified Pathways Master Plan is implemented as these developments move forward. So Vern has been very busy, and the Community Development Department is amazing in this town, and they're really proactive and supportive of us and our efforts as far as Parks and Recreation goes. And we've had, 2017, we had 96 development applications, and these vary all the way from, a variance to a huge development. So they really are different sizes and scopes as far as applications come in. And just in 2018 alone, we've already had 52 applications. So we're already trending more than we received in 2017. So that's really significant. Vern did give you an overview of a lot of the developments that are happening in the community. A lot of them, including the Vintage we've talked about here previously, Lomper Ranch, and then the Plateau Development. And in your packet, you have a map, so you can kind of just see conceptually where these developments are proposed. And I think Vern gave you in that staff report a little description of each of those and kind of how those fit into our Parks, Recreation, and Trails overview as far as the city goes. The most recent of all of these applications would be that Plateau Development, and it's near our rifle range and adjacent to the disc golf course property, working with them. And one of the conditions of approval that we put in that application packet is because that area wasn't contemplated in our Parks and Recreation Master Plan because it was zoned industrial. Now that it's zoned partially residential, our plan didn't really contemplate what are the recreation needs of that community. So one of the conditions we put in is that we want a public process. We want them to come here to you to talk about the development and what might be needed for that community. It is adjacent to, two pretty robust recreation facilities that we have. It's also near their landfill. The model air park. I mean, we have a lot going on already in that neighborhood. Maybe do we use a residential construction tax elsewhere where it's maybe needed, but having that conversation in a public setting. So we put that as part of their conditions of approval. For Lampa East, there's a 10-acre park proposed for Lampa Ranch South. There's a 3-acre park, Lampa Ranch North. There's some other trail and recreation connectivity components. So there's a lot of things going on. As you all know, in the Vintage, the real, I think, win is that trail connectivity through there that we've been waiting for years and years and years on, and making sure that happens. So there's a lot of really exciting things happening. Obviously, when there's a park proposed and things of that nature, they have to come here and have the conceptual design, and there has to be a process with that. So it's not a done deal. The staff definitely tries to steer them in the right direction. As you'll see in Vern's staff report, we're sort of taking a different approach and a different philosophy than the city has done in the past. The parkland that we get, I want to make sure is usable park space. I don't want to encourage additional detention basin parks that are not usable parks and that people can't use and enjoy. We also want to make sure that they're 100% funded for operations and maintenance. So any new park that comes on, whether it's a homeowners association or through a landscape maintenance district, it'll be 100% funded, so it's not an additional burden to the general fund. And that's really something I'm passionate about, making sure that we implement and we continue to stick to that line moving forward, because we can't continue to do more with less. And we need to be really cognizant of our impact to the general fund and still providing quality parks and recreation services as we move forward. So those are some of the really high-level kind of concepts of where we're at. I know you all requested sort of an update, knowing that development is kind of blowing up, if you will. And we look at it as a really positive thing, and it's a good way to be able to provide other opportunities for citizens here in Carson City. And we want to be really thoughtful about the development and make sure that our trails are connected, that there's recreation opportunities where possible, and in thoughtful locations. Not every single apartment complex or development needs a separate park. We already have more parks per capita than the national average. So do we want to have twice as many and then not have them maintained? So we want to be really careful about that balance as we continue to grow.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jennifer. This is right down my alley, so to speak, so I'm glad to see the report. Unfortunately, it's not complete. I kept this article from May 29th of the appeal, and it's reflective of the last Planning Commission meeting, which was held on May 30th, to look at the growth ordinance. And, for example, every year they try to say, okay, we can probably handle, 634 units or 659. It's based on all this mathematical charts and things that the planning staff provides when they bring this forward, and it's going to be coming to the Board of Supervisors probably pretty soon. But one of the things that got to me was to say, all in all, there are 2,634 residential units approved, but yet to be built. There's a backlog because they're not building the complete 600 and some units each year. So there's the impact of that. And Jennifer did bring forward to the Planning Commission in their packet a report saying that, we're a little concerned about the impacts of things like this. And then as she's explained, she went the positive way. I'm a little concerned about that backlog in terms of, providing recreational opportunities. There's a lot of multifamily units that are also being built that aren't on Vern's map. For example, the Carson Hills development of 330 some units, which is going to be, next to the Casino Fandango. And there's a lot of other multifamily, and I understand each one shouldn't or probably isn't going to have a park. As he says, maybe they can provide other things, such as, private pools, clubhouses, things like that, which help. That means that those folks are getting some kind of recreational opportunities. And then looking at amenities such as dog parks and splash pads. And one of the other things I think, like when we did our tour, we talked about these intergenerational playgrounds. In other words, playground just isn't for, kids. It could be for
All ages.
people that are, having issues like veterans, they need strengthening or certain kinds of exercises, so maybe there could be some equipment for them. Of course, us older folks, there's some ad I see on TV sometimes where there's this woman that's in some kind of a, I don't know what the heck it is, but I guess it's helping her. So anyway, there's a lot to this development, and hopefully, it sounds like, we've got good eyes on what's happening here, and hopefully, we can make sure that, we're well looked after, let's put it that way, in terms of all this development that could be taking place, it looks like, at a lot faster rate than it has been in the past. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Layman?
So when you were talking about having all these new developments pay for themselves, and you brought up the HOA and the Landscape Maintenance District, would it be safe to assume then that most, if not all, new development would fall under one of those two?
Yes, that would be a safe assumption, and that would be our goal. If they're able to. The challenge is when there's some of these smaller subdivisions, you don't want to create an HOA for only 100 people because it would be really costly. So we're trying to get the developers to work together. For Lampa, for example, collectively it's a few different developers, but if they came together and formed one large HOA, it'd be a lot less expensive for those homeowners. It'd be a little more cohesive with maintenance and design, so you don't have a bunch of different maintenance contracts or things of that nature that are more difficult to manage. So I would prefer that they come in and work together, especially with their neighbors. It'll be a lot easier for us to help maintain and manage and make sure it's done well, but then they'll have good quality parks that are maintained into the future.
Commissioner Long?
What if they do form an HOA and then later that dissolves?
So what we're doing is we're putting in the conditions where there's a deed restriction required. So should the HOA fail, a landscape maintenance district will be formed, so they will have an assessment to take over. So those property owners within that area will be assessed, and essentially the city becomes the de facto HOA, but it'll create a landscape maintenance district. So very similar to what we have in Schultz Ranch. We have a landscape maintenance district right now. The city will manage it and contract out that maintenance. We won't be actually using city staff, but we'll have city staff overseeing those contracts because we don't have the staff resources to be able to do that.
Commissioner Bagwell?
I was just going to state that the map that Mr. Cron provided was the ones of the areas that a new park is going. In his report, he discussed the other projects, but those one we're going to use the residential park construction tax to use to benefit those areas in a greater. So the map is just the ones that are getting a new park itself. So it's not that he didn't put it on the map, it's because there's no new park there. Just so at the Galaxy Theater project, there isn't a park going into that complex, but we will get that construction tax to be able to use, so.
And then just a point of clarification, so the Plateau Development, we don't know yet what that is, but that will come here. So I think that's why we have that on the map. And then typically the practice, so if they're building a park, let's say in Lampa, they're going to build a park, they actually won't actually pay the residential construction tax. They'll receive a credit in lieu of paying it. But they'll have to prove to us the cost for the park, which usually by far exceed the amount of residential construction tax that we would collect. So we don't have to actually reimburse them and have that additional administrative cost. So it's much more cost effective for the city to provide for that credit opportunity, and that's allowed in NRS. Because the developers will then build the park, they'll typically invest 2 to 3 times the amount of residential construction tax value, and then the community gets a much better park in the long run. So it's a really good partnership opportunity to work with the developers in that format.
Commissioner Curtis?
Yeah, okay, so for example, a multifamily, 330 units, those people, 2.5 people per unit, or however they do the math there, they're going to want to recreate somewhere. And so the point is, if we've got 2,600 units in a backlog, I understand not all of those are on the map, and some of them are, but somehow or another, we need kind of a general oversight as to, what are going to be the needs for all these new people in town. I mean, I know there's an issue with schools, for example, and there could be, I'm not sure, they say it's handled, but for traffic. But the idea is that, for example, he said, well, maybe we need more dog parks. And I agree with that, of course. But how are we going to go about making sure that those happen? I guess we have the residential construction tax funds, but then we got to decide, okay, if we need more splash pads or we need more dog parks, where are they going to be?
Those are all great questions. Again, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director, and I know Commissioner Curtis has a copy of the letter that I wrote to the Planning Commission. I'm happy to email that out to you. And it talks about where we're lacking as far as parks and recreation services, based on our observations, based on what we hear from citizens, based on a lot of different things, why we haven't had a formal study. There's a lot of things we know. We don't have, splash pads. We don't have dog parks here. We need to address some of those underserved needs and desires from the community. I really would like to, in the next few years, update our park master plan, and that would help kind of continue and look at how we approach new development and the needs of the community. And, from my perspective, I would rather reinvest in our existing parks and replace aging infrastructure and have that as a focus and I call it reimagining our parks to meet those needs and build dog parks and build splash pads and those things that are a little more progressive and not have the exact same playground at every single park, then add a bunch of new parks, and then our aging infrastructure is still falling apart because it's just not addressing our reality, unfortunately. So I would love a new master plan to not only survey the community about what their needs and desires are as far as parks and recreation goes, where those locations would be and how they want to use those parks, but how are we going to address that? It's really important. And we can, residential construction tax, the legislation was amended 2 sessions ago. And it can't be for repair and maintenance, but it can replace infrastructure and provide new equipment. So for example, Roscoe Park, we have a very old 20, 30-year-old play structure. You can use residential construction tax to purchase a new structure. It has to be part of new construction, but it's okay if it replaces that. So that's allowed. But can it be used for maintenance? No, we can't do that. And it doesn't really generate that much anyway. So if you think about up to $1,000 a home and $88 per mobile home, even in a new subdivision, let's say it's 300 homes, that's only enough to build a playground. $300,000 is what it costs to build a new playground. And that's not anything huge or fancy either. So the developers are really subsidizing and putting in additional funding to make these new parks pretty significant. So we're working with them to try to meet those needs in the meantime, but I would like to look at, an update to the park master plan in the next few years and trying to figure that out in a cost-effective manner.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other comments or concerns from the commission? Any public comment? Come on down, CK.
Yes, Madam Chair. I hope I don't sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I guess I just do. It's maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. We can have as many parks and money to build parks as we just are tickled with. And then 20 years, 15 years down the road, they're falling apart and going into disarray. The concrete's falling apart, the lawns, the plumbing, etc. So I've been seeing a tremendous amount personally, just driving through town, all these wonderful new projects. It seems like there's a construction project going up everywhere. It's certainly more than what is being shown on this. I agree with Vice Chair Curtis, and it's like you just look around and it's like this place is just bursting at the seams. I don't see Supervisor Bagwell how we're even keeping up with the water and sewer, just the infrastructure alone to keep all these things going. That's a whole nother subject, but it's like I'm just the maintenance guy. And when I see these wonderful schools going in, because the other schools are falling apart in Washoe County, it's like they're like disintegrating. Where did the money go for maintenance? I'm sure there had to be maintenance somewhere. Did it go somewhere else? Or maybe it wasn't voted upon? It is so vital for maintenance. Or we're just throwing money at the wall and watching it fall off. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your input. Okay. All right. Discussion only items, so let's move on next to item 4B, the Multipurpose Athletic Center. Discussion regarding statistics, exciting, information and original projections on participants at the MAC. And Dan, you're going to take this for us?
Yes, I'll try to keep it as exciting as possible. So Dan Art, Recreation Superintendent. At the last commission meeting, Supervisor Bagwell had kind of asked for us to do an update on the MAC. We've now, in January, we completed its second year of operation, and she had alluded to some numbers back in years ago and some planning of the MAC, kind of what the expectations of what the MAC would do, and how are we comparing to that now after 2 years of operations. And we weren't exactly sure what numbers she was referring to, so I went back and listened to, read through the minutes of all the Parks Commission meetings, and The numbers I could find presented were back in like 2011, so those are the ones that I used. Hopefully those are the ones that you're referring to. But back in 2011, and you'll see on the report the 2011 proposal, and the idea of what the MAC was back then was much different than what actually happened. And so you'll see that the sources of revenue and what we're actually bringing in is completely different than what was proposed. But I do feel very confident that just be here before you and say the MAC is doing well. I think it's a great resource to the community and is being used for sure. So back in 2011, the majority of the revenues were believed to be brought in by the Boys and Girls Club, and that's just not how, with the joint use agreement that later came into play, how we work with the Boys and Girls Club. They don't utilize it as much as was originally planned. They use a couple courts a day for a couple hours. So the revenues that we're getting from the Boys and Girls Club are significantly less than what was proposed in 2011 at almost $50,000. We're really only seeing around $5,000. And same thing with sport tournaments and rentals. It was proposed in 2011 that we would be seeing about $10,000 in revenues from that. But with our agreement with the Cultural and Tourism Authority for endorsed sporting events, we don't see revenue for those. So those fees are waived. We get reimbursed for direct costs, but it doesn't turn into revenue. So we don't see that as revenue either. However, they did believe back then that the MAC was not going to be conducive for drop-in usage, when that is the primary usage of the MAC, and that is our primary source of revenue is drop-in usage. And so, and you'll see that, I mean, we significantly, leaps and bounds, they were underestimated, I guess, what the MAC would bring in drop-in usage. And so you'll see in its first year that just in drop-in usage alone, the MAC brought in $54,000 and then increased by $9,000 in its second year, which I think is phenomenal. And we have every confidence that it's going to grow. I mean, because even pickleball alone has brought in probably a good chunk of that increase from 2016 to 2017, and we didn't start pickleball till May. So we have 5 months that we didn't have pickleball. Well, this year we'll have a full calendar year of pickleball. So we believe that that's going to exceed the expectations. So in 2011, even with $50,000 from the Boys and Girls Club and $10,000 from sports tournaments, it was hoped that the MAC would bring in $68,000. We were pretty much right there in 2017, just shy, by about $1,000. And like I said, we believe that it's going to surpass that this next year. In addition to that, what's not being shown in MAC revenue is the increase in sports revenue that has been affected by the MAC. So things like youth futsal, which is one of the main priorities of opening the MAC to be able to offer youth futsal. Those revenues are reported in our sports revenue, not as MAC revenue. But that's why I included that below as well. So in 2015, our sports revenue was, before the MAC opened, was $115,000, and then 2016, after the opening of the MAC, it increased by almost $8,000. So just having the MAC allowed us to increase our usage in basketball, especially in youth basketball. We have, I want to say, 420 participants in youth basketball, which is great. Allowed us to start doing youth futsal, and that we anticipate to grow even more in the coming years. And some other sport opportunities that we weren't able to do because we didn't have the space. And so it's kind of the unseen benefits of the MAC as far as revenues are concerned. And so there's that number too, that in 2017 we had 398 more sport program participants than we did in 2015 prior to the MAC opening. So basically 400 more participants in our sport programs, which is great. So hopefully those are kind of show the numbers that you're looking for. But we feel really grateful for the community and getting the MAC up and running. We feel like it's a great resource. I feel like the fact that the revenues are being seen in the adult and youth drop-in fees is great, because what that means is we're not bringing in the revenue from the Boys and Girls Club and from other organizations. It's from people who come in and use it, community members who are using the facility because they want to be there, and it's just drop-in usage, and that's what we wanted it for. So.
Thank you so much. I think Commissioner Bagwell has a question for you.
Well, or just a comment. So the reason that I wanted it brought forward is I think it's always important to look back and to say, why did we take on this endeavor? Why did we think the MAC was important to the community? Why, as a park commission, did we see that as a strength and a vision or a mission? And then to be able to say, and bring it back to the public and say, where did we go right? Or where did we go wrong? Where do we have areas to improve? And so to me, I'm really happy that it's in the adult and the youth fees, because there was a lot of issues that I received that said, well, no one's going to be able to get to use it because it's going to be booked by the Boys and Girls Club, and then the general community won't be able to use the facility. So I'm actually happy to see it's quite the opposite, that we're not segmenting it so bad and booking it that, like you said, we can't have drop-in use. So I like that people think they can go to the MAC and recreate, and I think it's going to be one of those resources that meets some of that growth that we're all talking about, right? And so the other issue here is you also see capacity available to expand the programs and the offerings at the MAC for those potential 2,500 more units over the next few years. So it just brings me comfort that we did the right thing, right? That's really what it was about, is to say, were we right? Did we target this correctly? And I'm sure in 10 years it's going to be, we should have built twice the size, and that's what I actually hope for, that the facility goes to its full use. Yeah, that's the right thing, because if you can have people out recreating, I think it's just phenomenal for your whole community. So thank you for bringing it, and I just like being able to show the public we got that right. A little bit in the wrong categories, but overall we got it right.
Commissioner Layman?
So yeah, the overall numbers were just about spot on. But yeah, going back to how it was significantly different than what we thought, and you brought up Boys and Girls Club a little bit. So even from 16 to 17, the amount from them dropped in half. Is that just because they're using it less and less and less, or?
So that was a result of when the joint use agreement was originally designed. Basically what we're charging the Boys and Girls Club for is not usage for court space, but utilities for the times that they're there, and that's what that fee is. And so they were being charged for the utilities of the entire facility for the hours that they had it. The Boys and Girls Club came to us and said, we're only using 2 courts while we're here and not the whole facility. And so we evaluated and we decided out of fairness that we would only charge them for the 2 courts, only half of what, half the facility, because they weren't using the entire facility at the time, and they shouldn't have been being charged for the entire facility.
Okay. So the other, I don't know who you addressed this question to. Oh, go ahead.
The good thing about that, though, is we can provide other opportunities while they're there. So they're not reserving the entire facility, so we can have other programming there. And I think these numbers really reflect how well the staff has programmed the building and the activities there. If you've seen our pickleball program, it went from non-existent to we don't have enough space. I mean, it's so successful. And Scott Chapman and all of the staff at the MAC, and with Dan's help, I mean, it's really a success story. And while it doesn't look like we thought, it's still really successful and going so well. But while the Boys and Girls Club number has gone down, we're utilizing the rest of the facility for the public.
And the Boys and Girls Club also, that wasn't pictured when they built a teen center. So, I mean, they've also done some other things within their own board and structure to supplement, and again, I just think it's a great idea every so many years, and that's why I really like that we're bringing a program to every meeting, because it makes us actually, look again, right? And say, are we on the right path with this one? Do we need to make any adjustments? And so I'm just, again, it doesn't matter that we didn't get the right category, but we got the overall goal of providing recreation in the community, and it's being used. So it's great.
So one thing, I mean, drop-ins just exploded, and and that is probably the market that we're excited about, because that's a community, and I've been there as a drop-in, and it's great. It's just a great facility. Sports tournaments, when we were debating this between the Mini Mac and the Big Mac, the Big Mac was supposed to bring in tournaments, which is what we got as the Big Mac. So I'm wondering, who is it now that kind of tries to go on and recruit those tournaments, and is there an opportunity to do that?
So the tournaments are mostly recruited through the Cultural and Tourism Authority, and we do have some tournaments there. There hasn't been as many as originally anticipated. We had like the wrestling tournament, for example, and with the new change in the Cultural Tourism Authority with James Salanoa, and he's been meeting with us, and he's looking at opportunities to start bringing in more tournaments into the MAC. Once again, it doesn't turn into revenues that will be shown, and so that's why I wouldn't show up on this report, because they'd be endorsed CTA tournaments, but we do plan on trying to work with them and bringing in tournaments to the MAC.
Dan, do you have a question?
Thank you. Well, on that, I can't remember why the revenues are going to the Cultural and Tourism Authority. At least I would say at a minimum, maybe there should be some sharing of that. Although we don't, everything goes in the general fund, so it's all going into the same pocket maybe. But I know that the revenues for the CTA have been growing very nicely. And if there's some need that we would have, particularly if we're talking about some expansion in the future, maybe that's something we would want to take a look at. And then I have some other comments too, but I think Director Budge has some response to that.
Jennifer, do you have something to say?
Sorry, I was just asking Mike to go check on something for me. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So we have an agreement with the Culture and Tourism Authority, between the city and the Culture and Tourism Authority. And it's not about the revenue coming in. It's about providing opportunities for outside tournaments to come into Carson and hopefully, obviously, spend their money here and increase sales tax dollars and expose them to the facilities here as well. So as far as the MAC is concerned, they can have up to one a month. We've limited that so it doesn't reduce the amount to the public availability too much. But basically, they don't have to pay a rental fee to use the MAC. They come to here free of charge, and then any of our direct costs to operate that tournament or event or provide the facility, the Culture and Tourism Authority provides a reimbursement for us through the use of room tax. And Supervisor Bagwell, stop me at any time if I talk incorrectly. But so it's more of us just covering costs, but providing our facilities and that opportunity and encouraging that outside use of Carson City facilities. So it's not us charging a rental fee and that money going into the general fund. It's through a separate agreement with the Culture and Tourism Authority. So it's a very special arrangement, but through a written agreement.
Help you?
Well, I just want to make sure I understand. Okay, but the Cultural and Tourism Authority does get the revenue, because I know that they...
No, they don't.
They don't?
They don't get the
There's no revenue.
Well, the room tax revenue is what funds our reimbursement of our direct costs for that tournament.
Okay, so you'll have to explain a little bit more. I'm
So
sorry.
if we have a tournament at the MAC, we have a wrestling tournament, and it takes 10 staff for us to operate that event. From opening the door and helping people and, replacing toilet paper and just operating that event. We're reimbursed for the direct costs of those 10 staff and all of our supplies required for that event. If it's at a sports field and they require lighting for one of the sports fields at night, we charge for the power to be reimbursed as a direct cost for that event. But it's reimbursed from room tax. So that's what's funding those direct costs for the event. So the CTA isn't getting the revenue, but we're basically through an agreement utilizing the room tax funding to be able to reimburse for direct costs, if that makes sense.
So I have a question. So I understand there's that agreement, but ultimately, those people wouldn't have come if it weren't for the MAG being there. So shouldn't we be able to at least report the amount of ultimately additional tax that the city saw as a result of that tournament?
We get a report from the Culture and Tourism Authority that will run through and say, these are, as an example, these are the 15 events that were brought, and then they use the number of hotel nights that they gather up from all of the hotels that participate in the hotel tax. That might say, okay, for this wrestling event, there were anticipated 200 room nights, and then they'll give us the estimated sales tax and hotel tax and purchases within. But that comes as a separate report that we get from the CTA at the board level.
Who is
Board of
us?
Supervisors.
The Board of Supervisors?
We get a
So I
report
guess
that shows all
my
that.
question is that this is a report on the multi-purpose athletic center. And I don't want to go like too far off base, but let's just say that the drop-in wasn't as impressive as it is, which good job guys with your scheduling. But let's just say it wasn't. And let's say that there was 10 other tournaments that were scheduled that brought in actually significant revenue, but that was reported as $0. Then there could be an argument to say that the MAC was underutilized or not serving its purpose, which is not accurate. So I guess maybe in the future or something, have however that joint use agreement is, to at least report the estimated earnings that, or like the
Or participants.
economic benefit that Carson City saw as a result of that facility.
And thank you, Commissioner Long. I think that might be a great update on a separate topic we could have in a future agenda item, is just that economic impact and our arrangement and agreement with the Culture and Tourism Authority, so we can kind of dive into that and what the impacts are to the staff. It's a great opportunity, but it is takes a lot of staff and financial resources. Even though we're reimbursed for our direct costs, it does take us away from our real job, maintaining our parks. And but we're still providing a lot of opportunities for the public. So it's kind of, a double-edged sword, if you will. But maybe we can have that as a future agenda item, and then we can talk about the participation numbers and the true impact. Another thing I'd like to probably discuss in that item, and I've talked to Supervisor Bagwell about it before, is that reinvestment in those facilities that are being used over and over again for those citywide tournaments. And how do we look at kind of doing that and involving that with that arrangement?
And do you feel that we're getting reimbursed enough for the maintenance? Like in the future, the floor is going to have to be redone and those types of things as a result of?
We're only covering our direct costs so that actually operate that event. So that infrastructure investment and to, strip the floor at the MAC or things like that, we're not getting that through that tournament.
And why not?
It's something that I think we should look at in the future, for sure.
Okay, yeah. And we weren't obviously involved or aware of that agreement, but I guess that's a concern. That maintenance has been what's discussed all the time.
Agreed.
And then aside from things that an agreement was signed that we're not even covering our true costs. The same thing happened to the ice rink, that somehow it was justified that the ice rink was covering its costs, and then later it came out that it truly wasn't. So just want to make that clear.
Yeah. We'll bring that forward maybe at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we were going to be looking at a future meeting anyway, because I believe we need to look at all of the fee structures and really dive into all of them to determine, at what ratio is something going to be subsidized, because we're not going to get 100% recovery. I mean, let's face it, the swimming pool, you think the city's investing $500,000 a year just in maintenance at the swimming pool, so we're never going to get a cost recovery. But I think it's imperative that we look at every avenue and really make some policy recommendations and suggestions. So
I think these are services to the community. We don't necessarily have to have an exact cost recovery, but I think we have to at least understand what the true costs are. Thank you.
Okay. And this is kind of in services to the community regarding the MAC. The Nevada Day Powwow, that was well-attended, lots of people. It was more a cultural experience rather than a recreational. Are we looking to expand upon similar experiences? Because that was well-received by the community.
And yes, and so the POW is kind of a new kind of an experience that we had at the MAC, and once again, that was brought in by the CTA. So that was a CTA endorsed event, and they are considering any kind of event that would bring heads and beds into the community and what spaces would benefit those type of events. So if the MAC is a great type of facility for a space for a different kind of event that's not necessarily a sporting event, I think that would be considered. We just want to make sure we're keeping it to that once per month so we're not having too many closures for the public.
Commissioner Curtis?
Yeah, just to finish up on CTA, because I've seen glowing reports in the newspaper about, how their revenues and et cetera have been increasing, and they've been able to hire consultants and things like that. So I think it might be a good idea if we're going to have this, would be to ask for James or somebody to come and kind of tell us a little bit more about, some of the things they're doing that affect, some of our facilities, and just to make sure that if we have needs, that we're not dependent upon, say, supplemental requests to the Board of Supervisors at budget time or something like that in order to get these things done, if there might be other sources available. Okay, so what I recall, unfortunately, I've been here so long, I think I remember, but there was a study that was done while we were paying the architect over and over again to come up with all these revised plans. We also paid another consultant to come up with what would be the possible costs and revenues for this facility. Now, this was the entire not just the MAC, but the entire, what's it called? The idea that we were trying to build a total facility for the public that would involve, much more than just what the MAC is. So I'm not sure if that would be, you could extract out from that study what were the supposed revenues for just the MAC. But anyway, that was something that was there. And also, just to remind you that, yes, we do have the ability to increase the size of the MAC because we have the plans for it, and it was built so it could be increased. If we ever say we could get infrastructure funds, if such things would come to pass, it's a shovel-ready project in the sense that it can be expanded into a full, what am I trying to say, center.
Complex.
Well, what was it called, Sean? What we were looking at for so many years. Not the MAC, but it wasn't just a gymnasium, it was an entire...
Yeah, there was climbing walls and splash pads.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry,
Like a
I just can't think.
multi-generational facility?
Well, it's a...
Multi-generational, something like that.
We didn't call it generational, but that's the idea.
Well, it's what they were building all over. Anyway, one of the questions I had was in terms of the walkers. How has that been going? Has that been kind of steady, increasing, decreasing?
On the lap or on the track?
Yeah, on the track, yeah.
I would say that the usage for walkers has been pretty steady. It hasn't had a significant increase, and it's hard for us we don't have our register set up for whether they're there for walking or whether they're for basketball, so we just have drop-in usage. So it's really just observation that I'm basing this off of, and it has a seasonal factor as well, where obviously in the winter it's a lot busier than it is right now, where it's really nice outside, and a lot of people will be walking outside. But throughout the year, I would feel it's been steady.
So I guess the general question is, you have the walk-ins, you have every once in a while, once a month, you'll have some event maybe, not so much from the Boys and Girls Club as expected. So do you think the facility's being well used, and are you looking for other uses?
I think the facility is being very well used, and obviously it's not at capacity as far as usage. So there's definitely opportunities for us to grow. We've talked about tournaments, and maybe other programming, other sport leagues. And there are times where we are at capacity, where we are trying to, and this is a good problem to have, but with pickleball and basketball and volleyball, and they all want to use the facility at the same times, we are having to work on scheduling, which is new for us. We didn't have to do that before, and now we do, and that's good. So there are times where we're at capacity, but there's definitely opportunities for more programming.
And what about the facility here then? Has there been any impact on it? Is it being used at capacity still? Because that was why we did the MAC, was because we didn't have enough, room here to take care of all the futsal and some of the other things, basketball, I think, for different age groups, et cetera. So.
Eric Klug, Recreation Program Manager. So here at the Community Center, we did see a decrease from the sports. We do still have futsal over here when basketball and futsal leagues overlap, just because there's not enough space at the MAC. But as for what we've been able to do, we've been able to get more renters, more conventions, arts and craft shows. We've been able to expand our contract classes. Roller derby is now up to 4 nights a week. So that's, caused an increase in revenue from them. So.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Any public comment on this item? You're good? Okay.
Thank you guys, nice work.
Yeah, very nice. All right, let's move.
I'll just read.
And more, Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, your microphone was off, so I'm going to try to highlight my highlights for you, so it's very clear. So an update on vacant positions and recruitments. We are currently recruiting for our office specialist, which is our front counter person over at the administration office, a park maintenance worker, which is a full-time position I'm super excited about. We got approved for next fiscal year's budget, so we're recruiting now with hopefully getting someone on right after the beginning of the fiscal year, which we desperately need help in the maintenance division. We just need more bodies. And then we're recruiting for all of our seasonal positions. So we really need seasonal park maintenance workers. If you know anybody that wants to come work, with the unemployment being down, our labor force is just down, and there's just not much available people because there's so many options for jobs, which is a good thing.
Seasonal workers, what's the youngest someone can be?
Well, at the pool, they can be 15, and as long as they're certified in lifeguard training. But for everything else, it's 16 and over. Yeah. Most of our staff is 18 or over, though, if it's park maintenance, for the most part. We are starting to hire a couple high school kids for the summer, so that'll be a great supplement. And then an update on our grants. We've been putting in a lot of applications, obviously, and I wanted to just give you an update on a few that we've received notice about, and some that the Board of Supervisors are going to be considering soon. The Community Development Block Grant that we submitted for Long Ranch Park, and that's just the ADA ramp, so all of the access to the trail systems, to the sidewalk. A lot of that is in the right-of-way and within the park. That will be going to the Board of Supervisors at their next meeting on the 7th for consideration. That recommendation, I believe, is $139,000. Also, we received word today from the Nevada State Parks that our Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for the Hamm property acquisition, which is over 200 acres on the west side of town, ranked #1 in the state. And that is huge. There were $1.7 million in requests and only $600,000 available, and we requested $250,000 of that. We also submitted another land and water application for Long Ranch Park as well for paved path rehabilitation. I asked if they would let me know what that one ranked, and I haven't heard back. So I think they're trying to find more funding than the $600,000 and trying to cross fiscal years and trying to fund more applications. So I think just probably letting the number one know, and that was about it for right now. But that's still really exciting for the city.
I'm sorry, Jane, could you repeat what that grant was for again?
For with the Line and Water Conservation Fund, so the one that we were notified about the award is for the Hamm property acquisition on the west side of town. And then we also had an application for Long Ranch Park, but I don't know the status of that yet. Then we received a NRA Foundation grant for the rifle range, and that's for safety signage, so that was $7,000. We're really thankful for that. We should be getting that signage in by the fall, which is great. And then we received 2 grants from the Department of Wildlife and their Pittman-Roberts Act funds, and that's for berm enhancement and then finishing the restroom, and that's under construction right now. So should be done by Thursday with all of that work, and that's wonderful. And the Public Works Department, I have to just thank them publicly for all their help on the berm enhancement project. We went out to bid on that, and the bids came back just exorbitant, because right now, getting any dirt work done in construction, it's right in the middle of construction season. It's just a really hard time to go to bid on those things. So they were able to, figure out their costs. We're paying their staff basically overtime, but through that grant, and that's really helping us out, and we're getting that project done. So, and within budget. So that's very exciting. We'll be soliciting public feedback for park naming soon. I'll email that all out to you when that's going to hit the streets, and then we'll bring that back to the Park Commission as well. But we're excited. We're going to have a new park, Schultz Ranch Park, that should be under construction really any day. It's been out to bid. We've been reviewing submittals on that park. So that should be happening soon, and hopefully will be done by the fall. And then our disc golf course. So we need to name those 2 facilities, and we'll make sure that we not only include the public, but your feedback as well, and we'll have that back for you. Then you had questions on the quality of life debt service. So I just got some information. I have some emails from finance because I didn't really have the complete information. So I'm going to try to do this, but with Supervisor Bagwell's help probably. So there's $641,788 last year that went toward debt service payment. On average, every year it ranges from $640,000 to $645,000, depending on how that flashes out on average. There were $4.8 million in park bonds in 1998. And those were refinanced, and these bonds are often refinanced to lower the interest rate, which is a benefit to citizens, but it draws that length of time often out. And that 1998 bond, it was refinanced, I believe, in 2010, but that one will be paid off in 2019, which is wonderful. Now, we had in 2013 the capital, which was for the MAC, and that won't be paid off till 2030. So after that initial one is paid off, the payments will change. So I asked finance to see if that amount will change, or if we'll have more money, available at our discretion to maybe work on our 5-year CIP plan or other safety issues. And they're going to have to try to figure that out. But she said typically it will probably balance back out to that $640,000. And then I do have, so in 98, those, I asked, well, what did that fund? Because I wasn't here, so I didn't know. And it did a lot of improvements. It did aquatics facility, lighting at Governor's Field. I mean, there were improvements throughout the entire park system. So it wasn't one significant large park project, but it did improvements, all that were outlined in the quality of life bond. So that was right after that initiative passed. It was basically leveraging that opportunity and trying to do all the projects, or at least a start at all the projects that were listed in the ballot initiative.
Just want to make sure I understand the debt service thing. Okay, so she's going,
This is
because
not
I remember
my thing.
before, I was a little disappointed when we had one of those bonds coming done, when we had paid it, and then it was all put back. And so we continued with the bond money, and it did not give us any money for discretionary projects, et cetera. So what's going to happen in 2019?
So it should still change. It should be about the same still, because basically that amount, even though you've paid off that bond, the amount gets adjusted, but hopefully we can pay off that earlier too. And that might be an option, but I don't think so. I think it's scheduled for 2030. but I don't know. I asked finance, and they can get back to me on that exact amount, what that calculation should be for the next fiscal year. So I can come back to you with an exact calculation for that, but they didn't feel like the amount would change very much. But I'm not exactly sure the mechanics of why that would be.
Let's try it a little bit different. So what happens is, so the 98 bond that got refinanced, you never extend the life of a bond. A bond can't change its years. So if it was a 30-year bond, it's a 30-year bond, but you could refinance it for the remainder of the time. So if 14 years is left on the bond, you might be able to drop your interest rate from like 5% to 4% or 3%. So we did a park refunding bond. But when the debt is paid, that debt leaves the debt service fund. And so unless we structured and I know we didn't on this, that's why I'm surprised they're telling you it'll stay the same. So unless the new bond that we did for the MAC was structured at, we'll pay less on the first 3 years and then more in the later years, if we structured the payments, but I don't recall that we did that. So you can actually go online and pull up our debt management and go to that committee. There's a 248-page report that lays out every single debt. I think it's important, though, and it'll show you the debt schedules that are out there. So you can look at every park, you can look at every single bond we have, every water bond, every park bond, and you'll be able to see it scheduled out, and when you can calculate the payments all by yourself. I mean, they're neat little schedules out there. So
I do have
Right.
some information from finance, and then it has the principal, the interest, and then the total debt service by year. So for 2018, the debt service is $594,479. Then it's $641. It adds that accrual in there, and then with the total amount on there. So I do have, like the principal for 2018 is $381,000, and the interest is $213, and I'm averaging, but I do have all that built out, and there's probably more in there. And thank you for clarifying that. This is definitely not, since I wasn't here, I don't know how they were structured, and I'm definitely playing a little catch up.
Lovely document.
Yes, it sounds fascinating. It sounds like just a fantastic document to read. So, but I can work and get some more information for you and continue to update you on that. But the good news is one of them is paid off next year, so that is, going in the right direction.
Unless
And
we
we know how-
reissue debt against it, but I don't know of a bond or any reissued debt that we're planning in parks, so.
Not yet.
I said right now.
Right. And then about Park Commission appointments, I just wanted to let you know that will go to the Board of Supervisors on June 21st. I had assumed it was on June 7th, but it's going to be on June 21st. I did confirm today with the manager's office. And that's all my updates. Any questions?
I have a quick question with the Hamm property. So is that complete then? Like we've agreed, they've agreed to sell it to the city, and the, what was it, $250,000 from the Land and Water Conservation was
So
issued?
we went to the Board of Supervisors, and they authorized us to apply for the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant and to go after that. We worked with Nevada Land Trust, and there is currently an agreement between the family and Nevada Land Trust.
Okay.
So we will, we just received the appraisal back. I can't talk about the value yet in a public setting, but we're doing all of our due diligence and all of those steps, and then we'll bring that back to the Board of Supervisors. Upon their approval, then what happens is that at closing, it's signed over to the city, but all the negotiations and everything goes through Nevada Land Trust until the very, very last step. But we'll go to the Board of Supervisors with a package of everything, with the appraisal, the title report, all the due diligence, making sure we have legal access to the property, and all of those steps by this fall. So it should close sometime this fall.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's been a really, really great community project. And I did want to acknowledge the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant that we are receiving, we had volunteers from the community actually take sections of the grant and help us put it together. And then our open space administrator went through and made sure we had consistent language and text and polished it up at the end. But it was really, a community team effort that put that grant together. And it's not easy. It's like a 150-page application.
So, yeah, that's great news. Where exactly is this Hamm property on the west side?
I'm going to give you the wrong acreage. I want to say it's 254 acres approximately on the west side up in the hills, and it's adjacent to Forest Service land, state parks, or state lands. There's already a trail system that goes through it. It's part of the regional trail plan. And the great part about acquiring this land, it legitimizes that trail system that goes through it, because right now there aren't easements, there aren't public access, but people are utilizing that land every single day.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Curtis?
Yes, under Board of Supervisors' actions, there's a couple of things. First of all, I was the person that was there for the budget hearings, and I was given this nice binder, which had a lot of the salient information about the budget concerning parks and recreation and open space, and I would appreciate it. I know it's going to take a little bit of work, but maybe the next time we have the budget discussion next year, if I'm here, but whoever's here, this is a very nice document, and it did include everything that we had all those questions about when we brought up, when you brought us the budget before. And so if it would be possible to have at least some of this along with what you provided to us. I know the focus is on, the capital projects that the department feels, should be looked at for the budget, and also any supplemental requests, but it does give us, all the salient information. So be possible. We don't have to have a binder necessarily, but it would be nice to have the documents.
Thank you, Commissioner Curtis. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So we can definitely try to put some of that together. Part of it is the timing of when that information is available and when when this commission meets. So some of that information just isn't really ready. And I completely forgot in my update to talk about the budget, and thank you for reminding me. But so you have one item in your packet, and it's capital requests that went to the Board of Supervisors for approval. And you have, everything that was requested from every department, but just to highlight the Parks and Recreation quality of life components and what is going to be funded is the playground replacement program, which we're continuing. We're trying to do a $300,000 annual investment in replacing playgrounds and modifying existing playgrounds to make sure that they're safe, and putting in new rubberized surfacing where we can on the newer playgrounds that we have to make sure that they're universally accessible, they're compliant with current standards, and that they're safe, and obviously creating a new recreation amenity that people can enjoy. We're also getting an equipment storage building at the corporate yard. We previously had one, and it was removed when the animal services shelter went in, and we have all this new equipment that we've been trying to acquire, and it's out in the elements, and we want it to last as long as possible, so that'll help us. It's a 3-sided structure, so then that way, it still has one open air side, but it's for the most part protected for our equipment. I'm going to combine two together. There's $200,000, $100,000 from this fiscal year, $100,000 from next fiscal year toward remodeling the locker rooms at the pool. And we're really working hard to replace the tile, replace the partitions, and hopefully get some painting done. And we're going to work on the flooring, hopefully, as well. So we're trying to stretch that money as much as possible. Also, at the aquatic facility, we'll be replastering, at least the 50-meter pool. We're going to try to get at least the top pool and the therapy pool as well, if the bids come in well. But we'll be doing that, and we're going to try to do all of this at the same time. most likely in the winter months, and probably the same time we're going to be doing the theater project too, which is really exciting. We're getting the iPads for the youth programs, as Andrew told you earlier, continuing putting safety capping on our outfield fencing at our sports fields to make sure that those are safe. And that land acquisition amount, that's the Hamm property. So it wasn't known at the time what the value of that land would be or if we would get grants. But that's the budget authority for that, which is in the open space budget. Any questions on capital improvements?
I just want to comment or clarify. So when you're looking at this, the ones that say 210, that's the fund number. So that came out of the regular property tax, not quality of life. So everything that's got a 254 on it's your quality of life funding. But oftentimes I think this board believes that the Board of Supervisors never gives you any money out of the general fund, and that simply isn't true. So I just thought it was important that I recognize it's not all coming out of Q18.
Yes.
We actually take it out of, so everything that's 210 is your general. So it's hard to read these if you don't know what all the neat little numbers mean. So
Thank you for clarifying that. And then I gave you some late material tonight, and it's just one page out of a much larger document. And if you look at the top, it talks about supplemental requests recommended by IFC. IFC is the Internal Finance Committee for funding. They didn't have another final document that was produced, so I just wanted to give you kind of what the working document was going forward. And supplemental requests are things that are added to our operating budget. So when they're added, it's not like a one-time capital improvement. It's actually adding additional money to our operations budget, which is phenomenal because that's really where we struggle, as you hear us complain all the time. So you can see that we are continuing to work on our reorganization and making sure that staff are charged to where they're actually working. In light of, I call last year was phase 1 of our reorganization, and now we're trying to clean that up and make sure that that's all implemented correctly. And that's really created some significant cost savings over time, not only changing up, those positions and the allocation, but being more efficient at the same time as well. So I like to see that direction that we're going. And then we talked about the one new full-time equivalent park maintenance worker, which is just, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that we're going to be able to add more boots on the ground. I constantly am harping we need more boots on the ground and not people at the top, and this is really going to help us. We received a budget for the park ranger program. We had no budget previously in the general fund. We did have a little bit in the open space budget. We will also have new investment in park maintenance and ranger uniforms, which is wonderful. And there's an investment across the board for radio charges for fleet, and that's something that every department contributes to, so that's across the board. And that's an investment in our radio system, which is really important, especially during emergencies. We're getting seasonal increases for all of our seasonal staff in recreation, which is so needed. We currently pay grossly under the average in the community and in the region, and when the labor force is down, we have a really hard time finding people. So this is an investment in our people resources as well, and getting an increase for that. The software maintenance that Andrew talked about earlier, also continuing making sure we have uniforms and people are identified as staff, for our lifeguards, for the staff at the MAC, for all of our front counter staff, so when you walk in, you know who works there, and if you need help or any assistance, you'll actually know who to go to. So those are really important. What's not on here, and is something that we talked about here at the Park Commission, and Supervisor Bagwell is a big supporter of, was getting another 0.5 FTE, so not benefited, but a 4-hour a day, 20-hour a week clerical person that'll work here at the community center, and they will really help with the children's cabinet paperwork and helping manage that program, but just providing assistance for everybody that comes in this building. And there's so many people here. If you rent a room or you're new or you don't know where to go, this person will be able to help orient you where we don't always have staff available. So that is a huge addition. Any questions on the supplemental requests?
Still under Board of Supervisors actions, and on that budget day was the proposal to combine Open Space and Parks and Recreation Commission, which was, it was decided after much discussion that they wouldn't do that. But what they did decide, and that's what I wanted to, if this is the time to talk about it, would be they wanted to reduce the number of meetings that the Parks and Recreation Commission is going to have, and instead include, in the 6 meetings we have a year, 2 of them would be joint meetings with Open Space. And so the possible consequences of that would be, if we're going to have fewer meetings devoted to Parks and Rec, are those meetings going to be longer because we're trying to still cover some of the same ground? Are there items that are just not going to be able to be dealt with because we don't want to be going all night? And all of this. And some of us have talked about this a little bit, and I think there are some ideas to try to, talk with staff and the commission in terms of trying to reduce the time we spend on items, and here I am going on. But, maybe there's some training or some orientation or something that needs to occur in order to try to accomplish some of this.
Jennifer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So when this went to the Board of Supervisors, and this definitely fits in that Board of Supervisors action, they directed that the Park and Recreation Commission will have 4 meetings a year, that the Open Space Advisory Board will have 4 meetings a year, and then we will have 2 joint meetings per year. So it is overall less meetings for our DA's office and the clerk's office, so there is some cost savings in that realm. I do think it provides a really good opportunity for the 2 boards to talk together. There's a lot of overlapping topics, which it comes up here. Like, all of you have great questions and are very passionate about the Hamm acquisition, for example. It doesn't just mean something to the Open Space Advisory Committee, it means something, for recreation as well. And there's other overlapping topics which we've talked about: natural resource management, trails, defensible space and weed and fuels, and there's just so many things that really matter to the entire department and the entire community and are overlapping. So we'll have to try to navigate that together. I would like to get a third-party facilitator to do board development with Parks and Recreation Commission and the Open Space Advisory Committee. We'll have potentially 3 new members after the 21st meeting, so I don't really want to do anything until we get those people on. And I want to work and make sure that we have clear missions and visions for each board, so we all know what the purpose of those boards are, and then anything we would bring to you has to fit in within that mission. So that way we have some focus. I'd also like to talk about, in that board development, I'm looking at doing maybe like a workshop or a retreat type format where how do you guys want to have communication? There's a lot of opportunity in between meetings, so we can keep you informed, or if we need advocates for something and we can reach out to you, or if there's something that comes up and you want an agenda item on, or maybe we send you like a little newsletter in between, or just having some more communication really outside of the meetings as well, so you're adequately informed on what's going on in the community as far as these things go. And then working together, what kind of joint things do you want to see? When we had the joint meeting in December, it was a really long meeting, but because there was so much to talk about. And I think that's part of what that initial Board of Supervisors direction was, to look at that, and the city manager looking at possibly combining those boards was because of things like that. But that was not what was directed. And then what the Board of Supervisors asked is to give it 18 months and then come back and report and say how it's going. Is that seem to be what's going well? Is 2 joint meetings enough? Should we still, consider combining the boards? Should we, completely go separate? I think that's unknown at this point, but we need to all work on that together. But I'd like to do some board development after we get all of the board members on and everything solidified. And we'll probably do that maybe in July or August and do a workshop.
just to be clear, so we're still having, meetings every other month. Some of them going to be joint, some are going to be, because I was kind of, I'm always not excited about having this meeting in August on the same as the night out. Because
joint one.
yeah, because everybody's kind of antsy, let's get out. Well, that would be a good night to have it, maybe. But I think a lot of the commissioners, I want to get out there, type of thing. And I always kind of was hoping that we could have it on a different night in August. But I guess we're still going to have it. I mean, we still need to have the meeting. We can't say there's not going to be fewer meetings. It's just going to be fewer dedicated.
We could, for future agenda items, we could probably talk about it under that, and future, if you propose canceling or doing a field trip or something of that nature, that would probably be appropriate under that agenda item.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? All right, is there any public comment on this item? You're good? Okay. All right, hearing none, let's move on to members' announcements and requests for information. Does anybody have any? Donna?
Oh,
What?
We've outdone ourselves.
Well, actually, I just have one. Jennifer, let's go back to the MAC. And you sent us a email about an incident that took place and the response and talents of our staff and what was the result. It was a very positive one. Could you please share that with the commission and with the public? Because I was proud of the staff.
I would be happy to. We have actually, since that email, we've actually had 2 incidents now with the same individual, unfortunately. But from my understanding, he's doing well. So we had a gentleman, older gentleman during pickleball, suffer what appeared to be a cardiac emergency. We had citizens and staff come together, and I'm going to use one description for both incidents because it was very similar. Come to the aid of this gentleman. He was not breathing. His heart had stopped. They did revive him both times. So it was just tremendous. So the first incident, we were very fortunate, and he attended the Board of Supervisors meeting and was just so appreciative of the staff. And the fire chief awarded them with a commendation certificate and to thank them. And we're going to plan that also for June 21st for the second incident as well, because it was different staff and different citizens that came to his aid. And it's just really a testament to people working together, taking care of everybody in the community, and the training that our staff has. Because oftentimes at the MAC, we have one person there. So you really need to work together with community members to make sure that everybody's okay. So we have 2 success stories, and we're happy to report that. And we'll be acknowledging the other staff and the other citizens at the 21st meeting.
Thank you so much.
Out of curiosity, are there AEDs? I think there's one at the pool at the MAC as well.
We do have an AED, and both times, the second time it was actually used but by the fire department, because we had
Yep.
multiple situations with that second, but we do have AEDs. We have one at our administration office as well.
So it was a combination of the proper training and the proper equipment.
Correct.
All right, is there any other requests? All right, I guess we're going to skip over the report from the school board liaison. What about the report from the Carson City Foundation for Parks and Recreation? Okay, we're skipping over that one too, I guess.
I know, but Supervisor Bagwell, do you want to, as a member of the Parks Foundation, talk about the community awards? I didn't bring it with me either, but
I printed it and gave it to someone. But anyway, you can go on to the website and pull down or request the document if you want to nominate anyone for Volunteer of the Year, Volunteers of the Years, plural, Business of the Year, and Organization of the Year. We like to annually, we place it on the wall that's there at the, what did we rename that? Marv Texera Pavilion. and put those names on the wall every year. So that is open right now if you know of anyone in the recreation sphere that you would like to nominate. And then you can also do a memorial if you have anyone that you'd like to pay tribute to within the community or your family or someone. So we also have that available for inscription on that wall. And then we also have a logo contest going on to design the logo for the foundation. So if you have a graphic artist in your sphere that would like to do that, you can also submit a logo.
All right. How long is the nomination process? What's the deadline? And when will the award ceremony be?
If I may, because I'm considering trying to nominate somebody. So, and the form, well, I went again because Carson now had their summary that they put, that I get an email on. And when I tried it before, the email that you were supposed to go to for the foundation to get the forms didn't work, but they've corrected it. And so I tried. I don't have the results yet as to whether or not the forms actually worked. But the deadline is June 15th.
Thank you. Any more on this? All right. If not, let's move on to item 6, future agenda items, discussion only. Any thoughts on future agendas for future meetings? Jennifer, are we considering a park tour sometime this summer like we did last year and the year before, or because of the meeting schedule?
I think this is a good time to discuss that. So if there's a certain month that you'd prefer, maybe our workshop and board development activities to occur, it would be good to know now. And then in a couple weeks, we'll be going to the Open Space Advisory Committee, so I can ask them as well and kind of get a temperature what the timing might be for them. And then a park tour, and that might be a great joint opportunity, even in an informal manner, for some camaraderie, and we could do maybe a joint tour with both, if that would be, I don't know what you're thinking, but.
Well, I just find the park tours very beneficial for all the commissioners. We see the different parks at different times and how many people are utilizing them or what needs to be improved, repaired. And maybe if Open Space went along with us, they'd see things from our point of view, we'd see things from their point of view. We'd bridge the gap, if you will.
I think that's a great idea, and if there's any particular facilities you're thinking that you'd like to see, you can let me know. You don't have to tell me right now. Just let me know what you'd like to see, and we'll try to put something together. Did you want to try to do that in August, or would you prefer the board development activities to occur in that month?
There's probably a good possibility there's going to be some new commissioners. And I don't know about Open Space. Are they vacancies? Or?
They'll have one to fill, I believe.
Yeah, actually, with the new commissioners, that might be beneficial.
To do that. And the other thing we used to do with new commissioners was give them some kind of orientation. I don't know if you're still planning on doing that.
I would like to do that too, and I think when we do the board development activities, the things that you would like to see, we could talk about that as well.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, I would wait definitely until, I guess, if the interviews are June 21st, I guess they make the decision then.
Yeah.
So we'll know who
They'd be on
those
board
folks
by the
are.
August meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So what's the pleasure of the board? How do you feel about a park tour in August, or shall we postpone it?
And that's National Night Out too, correct?
Right.
In
That'd be a good
August?
time to scoot.
So maybe we could do the workshop July or August. We'll leave that up. Maybe we'll do a doodle poll and see when people are available, and then, and do a tour in August. We'll just feedback, and then we'll, yeah, it's future agenda. I don't know, just starting to deliberate. Okay. No time.
Does anybody else have any agenda items they'd like to see on future agendas? Donna?
Yeah.
Lori? Sean?
And we'll add the Culture and Tourism Authority updates for whenever our next meeting is.
Yes. That would be fabulous if we did that.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else on this item, let's go to public comments. Are there any members of the public who'd wish to comment?
Done.
All right, seeing as there's no takers, I'll entertain a motion on adjournment.